1989. Tempe Military Base, Bloemfontein. A vehicle rolls off the transporter and onto the parade ground that immediately makes everyone who sees it stop talking. It is 28 tons. It rides on 8 massive wheels. Its turret carries a stabilized 76mm high-velocity gun derived from a naval cannon. It has a laser rangefinder, thermal imaging, and a fire control computer. It can fire accurately while moving at 120 kilometers per hour. At that speed, it will outrun every tracked vehicle on Earth. The Army chief who received it, Lieutenant General Andreas Liebenberg, said something that sounded like a boast but was actually a precise tactical description. The Rooikat would be pushed into service because it can outmaneuver and attack tanks in battle conditions common to southern Africa, where engagements often are at close quarters. The vehicle had taken 13 years to develop. By the time it arrived, the war it had been designed for was almost over. The border war ended in 1990. Namibia became independent. The Angolan front went quiet. The Rooikat had been built for a conflict that had finished before it could fight in it. It would spend the next 3 decades being almost completely unknown outside South Africa, occasionally evaluated by foreign armies, consistently admired, and never exported. While the wars it missed were studied in every military academy on Earth, the vehicle that would have won them faster stayed in Bloemfontein. Its name means caracal in Afrikaans, red cat, and like the caracal, the fastest cat in Africa, pound for pound, it was built to be somewhere else before anything could catch it. To understand why the Rooikat existed, you need to understand what the Eland had failed to do at Kuvalai in December 1983. The four-wheeled Eland 90 had been the South African Armored Corps' primary armored car for over a decade. It had killed T-34s and T-54s across Angola in a combat record that should have been impossible for a 6-ton vehicle. But at Kuvalai, FAPLA's T-54 and T-55 tanks with 200mm of frontal armor had tested the Eland's limits. Multiple hits were required. The gunners ran out of 29 rounds before they ran out of targets. And critically, the Eland had to stop completely to aim. A vehicle that must halt to fire accurately is a vehicle that presents a stationary target to whatever it is firing at. General E. Penleal's post-operation report was unsparing. The Eland could not stand up to the heavier protection of T-54 and T-55 tanks. The Rattle 90, which mounted the same turret on a heavier chassis, filled the gap for the remainder of the border war. But the SAF needed something faster, longer-ranged, and capable of the one thing neither the Eland nor the Rattle could do: fire accurately on the move. Development had actually begun in 1976, well before Kuvalai confirmed what the designers already suspected. 3 prototype concepts were built to verify the basic platform. By the early 1980s, competing designs were being evaluated. The Bismarck, an 8-wheeled 40-ton vehicle carrying a 105mm tank gun with assistance from West German engineers at Thyssen-Henschel, the Cheetah Mark I, a 6-wheel design with a lighter 76mm gun, and the Cheetah Mark II, an 8-wheel design that was heavier than the Mark I but considerably faster. The Mark II was accepted after trials in March 1984 and became the foundation for the Rooikat. Full-scale development commenced in late 1985. The choice to arm it with a 76mm gun rather than the Bismarck's 105 was deliberate and argued fiercely within the SATFA. The gun's critics said it was too small. Its defenders said the same thing the Cascavel's designers had said a decade earlier in Brazil: you can carry 48 rounds of 76mm ammunition instead of the 20-odd rounds of 105, and the ammunition the Denel GT4 fires, APF-SDS tungsten alloy rounds at 1600 meters per second, can penetrate T-54 and T-62 armor at 2000 meters at any angle of attack. It is not what caliber you carry. It is what you can do at the moment of contact. The Denel GT4 76mm gun was based technically on the Oto Melara 76mm naval cannon, the same weapon fitted to frigates and patrol vessels across 40 navies worldwide. It was nearly identical in chamber dimensions and ammunition compatibility. But it was fully stabilized, integrated with a digital fire control system carrying a laser rangefinder and environmental sensors, and capable of engaging targets while the vehicle moved across broken terrain. That stabilization was the revolution. The Eland had to halt to fire. The Rooikat did not. At 120 kilometers per hour, the maximum road speed that a twin-turbocharged 10-cylinder diesel Atlantis engine producing 563 horsepower pushed it to, the gun remained locked on its target through the fire control computer, the barrel compensating automatically for every lurch and bump of the terrain beneath the wheels. The turret drive and gun stabilization were entirely electric, reducing the vehicle's thermal signature and eliminating the hydraulic fluid that in older vehicles became a fire risk if the armor was defeated. The crew of 4 operated in a hull of welded steel that provided protection against 23mm armor-piercing rounds across the frontal arc, the weapon SWAPO and FAPLA had most commonly used against South African vehicles throughout the border war. The hull design also provided a high degree of mine resistance. Trials demonstrated that the running gear could remain partially functional even with one or two wheels destroyed by a buried charge. The operational range was 1,000 kilometers on roads. That figure meant a refueling could drive from Bloemfontein to the Angolan border and be ready to fight without a single fuel resupply. It could deploy under its own power across the entire operational depth of the border war theater. No transporters, no rail movement, no logistical preparation that announced its arrival. Across the sandy Kalahari terrain that had chewed through tracked vehicle components for 2 decades, the Rooikat's 8 wheels moved without the abrasion that destroyed track links. The vehicle was 2 meters wide enough to break light bush at speed without losing momentum. Its ground clearance was sufficient for rough terrain transit that would have slowed a tracked formation, and it could retain mobility even with just one steerable wheel functional on either side, a redundancy that acknowledged the mine-saturated environment of southern Angola where the vehicle had been designed to fight. The first Rooikats were manufactured by Sandock Austral beginning in September 1987 and delivered to the South African Army for further tests by December. Mass production commenced around mid-1998. 200 vehicles had been produced. By the end of the program, 242 Rooikats had been built. Then the wars ended, and the export orders that everyone expected never arrived. In 1990, an upgrade and redesign program began for the international market. By 1994, the Rooikat 105 prototype had been completed, the same 8-wheeled platform with a 105mm rifled gun based on the British L7, capable of firing all standard NATO ammunition. India evaluated it. Algeria evaluated it. Other nations looked. Nobody signed a contract. The post-Cold War defense market was saturated with cheap surplus equipment from armies reducing their inventories after 1991. A sophisticated South African armored car at full market price could not compete with surplus T-72s at scrap metal prices. South Africa's political isolation during the apartheid years had damaged its defense-export relationships in ways that could not be quickly repaired after 1994. The Rooikat 105 that could have competed successfully in several markets instead became a museum piece. The Rooikat's single confirmed combat deployment was the 1998 South African intervention in Lesotho, Operation Boleas. In September 1998, Lesotho Army mutineers had seized key government installations in Maseru. South African and Botswanan forces intervened at the request of the Lesotho government. Rooikats of the 1st Special Service Battalion arrived in Maseru on 22 September 1998 and participated in security operations against the mutineers. The vehicles performed without mechanical failures across the operation, validating the reliability of the Mech-1D variant's improved engine in a genuine operational deployment. The fighting was not the high-intensity armored engagement the vehicle had been designed for, but the operational tempo was real and the vehicles were equal to it. It was the Rooikat's only war. The vehicle that had been designed to outmaneuver T-54s across the Angolan lowveld spent its operational career in Lesotho and on UN peacekeeping missions and in storage in Bloemfontein. Today, 80 Rooikat 76 Mk1D vehicles are in active service with the South African National Defence Force, with a further 92 in storage. The vehicle is assigned to the SA Army School of Armour and 1 Special Service Battalion at Tempe Military Base in Bloemfontein, with 3 Reserve Force units also operating it. Its intended replacement, the Denel Badger, was contracted in 2007. As of 2026, not a single Badger has been delivered. The Rooikat has outlasted its replacement by nearly 20 years. When Ukraine began suffering losses of lighter-wheeled armored vehicles to Russian drone and anti-tank guided missile attacks in 2022, analysts began noting that the Rooikat's combination of stabilised fire-on-the-move capability, mine resistance, high road speed, and 23mm frontal protection offered a capability profile that no current Western-wheeled armored car matched at comparable weight. No order followed the analysis. The Badger remained undelivered. The Rooikat remained in Bloemfontein, and the Caracal, the Red Cat built to outrun and outshoot everything that could chase it, waited in the dust of the Free State for a war that the world kept starting without it. 1989, Tempe Military Base, Bloemfontein. It arrived too late for the war it was built for. Its gun could penetrate a T-62 at 2,000 meters while the vehicle was moving at combat speed across broken terrain. Its engine could take it 1,000 kilometers from the base without refueling. Its wheels could retain function after mines that would have immobilized tracked formations. No other wheeled vehicle in the world could fire accurately at 120 kilometers per hour. 242 were built. None were exported. The war ended before they could fight it. The replacement never came. And the most capable wheeled armored car South Africa ever built spent 30 years in storage, while every army that should have bought it built something worse for more money. That is not a story about a failed vehicle. That is a story about timing. The Rooikat was not wrong. The world's procurement calendar was